Hello and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. This is Jeff Hopkins. I'm here with
Richard Manfredi
and
Michael Winfield.
This is a great and team, Richard and Michael, and that's what the topic of this podcast is, and teams. So this was my selection of a subject, so I get to choose who goes first, and I'm choosing Richard to go first.
Oh, thank you, Jeff. I'm sure it's because I'll get it off to a good start, right?
You always get it off, that's for sure.
Oh boy. So my first choice, I kind of had to. There's so many choices here.
There's a lot of things.
A lot of things that are something and something.
Yeah.
I think is with science has proven. Science and literature have proven. So I kind of had to do the Michael thing and break this up into categories a little bit, or else there's just no way I could have handled it.
Chaos.
Yeah, it would have been chaos all over the place. So I went with comedy partnerships. And it was really tempting. I really thought about going with something that was contemporary and edgy. I was really pushing toward Penn and Teller because they've managed to be revolutionary in the fields of comedy, magic, and skepticism. That's pretty good. That's 3-pack right there. And just as a side note, if you ever get a chance to watch, they made a film called Penn and Teller Get Killed back in the 80s. It's incredibly dark and twisted, and it's funny. And if you like Penn and Teller, it bombed in box office. Go see it if you ever get a chance to.
But that's not your choice.
That is not my choice because while I was doing some research, I fired up the Who's on First routine from Abbott and Costello on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I laughed.
Yeah.
And I kept laughing. And even though I knew the whole premise, I knew the punchlines, I knew every bit, I just kept laughing the whole way through.
Well, as a good partnership, I also have Abbott and Costello.
Oh,
that's incredible.
You know what's wild is that the first thing you leaned towards was still another sports, the sports aspect of this. So
right.
You're
well, sort of. I mean, that's the Abbott and Costello.
I'm pulling your chain a little bit, but no, Abbott and Costello are the best.
Yeah.
It's the best.
And it was amazing that you just watched it. And like I said, even though I knew, the whole like wordplay and everything of it, it's just the timing of it and the way that they interplayed with each other. Mm-hmm. And this thing would just go so fast. And I think Jerry Seinfeld has talked about the fact that the whole like interplay in the back and forth is happening so fast that your brain as the viewer has to like take a second to process it and you're almost behind it. Mm-hmm. And then just when it was going too fast, they do something like third base.
Yeah.
And kind of give you a second to let it breathe and kind of like tension, release. And they got to wind it up again.
As Costello gets, he wipes his brow and stifles.
Whacks his head with a baseball bat, pulls a hat over his head.
Yeah.
It's hard to sort of like reduce their career into one bit.
No, what was amazing about Abbott and Costello is that they were able to take their vaudeville act and apply it across a number of different medium. I mean, they went from, the vaudeville stage together. Right. They started in radio as part of on a radio show, basically doing their act.
Right.
But then, you had to tweak it to a radio show. But then the same thing, they basically applied their act in a bunch of different trades, whether it was movies with their Abbott and Costello meet the fill in the blank,
right,
or One Night in the Tropics or Buck Privates, is that they played these characters that were just these archetypal characters of, Bud Abbott is the straight man and Costello is like this, bumbling, confused, innocent buffoon.
Right.
But they've done them better than anyone else kind of ever has.
Yeah, they almost I don't want to say they certainly didn't create that archetype, the straight man and the kind of bumbling, no. But they might have perfected it. And like you said, they were, I think, a really important transitional comedy role, like you said, from that world of vaudeville to kind of being able to modernize their bits a little bit more and kind of take it a little bit away from the two-man like patter a little bit, sort of, the way they're able to, like you said, kind of take it from radio to television and film, find a way to make it work as you're integrating these other supporting characters and
like people. Frankenstein or Hercules.
Yeah, exactly. Some of these real characters.
Speaking of bridging, like that routine is actually something that was very common in vaudeville. Like much of vaudeville, there was a little bit of origination and a lot of duplication. So there were routines that were very similar to the Who's on First with different names and things like that.
Yeah. And it was interesting that like with Who's on First, they could give you whatever length of that you needed. Mm-hmm. Like if you said, okay, we need 3 minutes of it. They immediately nail it 3 minutes. Or if you need 8 minutes of it, they'd stretch out to 8 minutes. It was just they had that down so much.
That was great.
About 15 years ago, my dad at a local theater here in LA was in a play called Lose on First, and it was about the life of Bud Abbott and Lou Costello, and my dad played Bud Abbott, and he and his my dad Chris Winfield and this other gentleman Van Boudreau did Costello, and to this day they will do like they know the bits, and they'll do them at like their local Christmas show, and it's weird because like I used to run lines with my dad when I was a teenager as Costello. So like so many of the different back and forth and the bits and who's on first and Flea Flew and 7 times 3 is 28 and
was the Susquehanna Hat Company?
And you drive it. So there's like all these things that like I hear a little bit of it and it just I have like a very personal like connection. I can do a little bit of Flea Flew now, or I could do like a little bit of who's on first.
Right.
And it's amazing how.
Well, it's because it's interesting, Michael. These baseball players today got so many interesting names.
Oh yeah, like what kind of names?
Well, you got Dizzy Dean, you got Daffy Dean.
I think the reason you guys are repeating it, the reason the audience would probably love to hear you do it, is because I think like going to see your favorite band live when you got the record, you want to see them experience it, and it's so fun to see the slow burns, the pacing of that thing, whether you know the ending or not, which you do, of course. It's so fun to see them go through it.
And they were also kind of war heroes in a sense. I mean, they didn't fight, but they
fought the mummy. They fought Frankenstein. They fought the killer Boris Karloff.
They lost against the IRS, I think.
Right, they did lose. They did fight the law, and the law won on that one. But they, on their own dime, they went across the country during the war and would do shows and routines to raise money for war bonds. And they actually raised like $85 million in war bond sales.
Wow.
So, they built the warships. They paid for the warships, if they weren't out there fighting. So it's also interesting. As with any partnership, sometimes they didn't get along. They actually had a whole year where they didn't speak. And,
Can we do that too?
Yeah.
Starting now.
Oh, okay, good. And the reason behind that, because Abbott had hired a domestic servant that Costello had fired.
Oh,
Costello got so mad about it that they'd only talk on stage for a year.
Oh, is that right?
That's a little
That seems like a weird thing to get like that offended about, but
that leads into something I want to talk about later. But
when Peaches ate off Herb's plate like stole a French fry.
Are you ruining one of my picks?
Shoot, sorry. Okay, so we both agree that we like Abbott and Costello. So I guess Michael, we're going to go to your 2.
All right, I'm going to go way back and talk about Adam and Eve. Now they teamed up to fight.
Wait a second. The sexy website where you can buy all sorts of.
Listen to some of the accomplishments of Adam and Eve. They teamed up to fight Satan. Adam would use his powers to transform into a bucket of water, and then Eve would turn into a fowl. I got the wrong. Wait, okay. No, I'm not using.
Is there a monkey involved? Is there Click is involved? Or
was not the Wonder Twins.
I'm not going to talk about Adam and Eve because that's boring.
Because now it's Adam and Steve.
That's right.
Thank you very much.
No,
thanks, Obama.
What's funny is you brought this up earlier. I am going to talk about Penn and Teller.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. By the way, I'd like to point out that we started this with, God, there are so many possible ways we can go with this.
Stupid.
I hate you, Michael.
Well, I hate you too.
Yeah.
I was approaching this in terms of partnerships by like long-standing partnerships, like who had been together for a long time. And Penn and Teller, magicians and illusionists, have been together for over 40 years.
Wow.
And it's amazing that kind of relationship, a business relationship, can last for that long when it's just two people. If you're in a band and maybe there are different personality traits that play off of each other. But, reading about them, even as late as 2014, like in interviews, like Penn would basically say, we're not the best of friends. Like our connecting tissue is the stuff that's on stage. We don't hang out. We don't really talk to each other. We talk to each other about business and magic, even though he still considers like Teller his best friend. They don't have that sort of relationship where they're talking all the time or.
Well, obviously they're not talking all the time. Teller can't talk, Michael. We all know this.
Maybe that's how the relationship works.
It's a secret to a good
one
friendship.
person is just this booming.
It's like what?
Yeah, Michael, you should take a hint on this one.
All right,
Jim Henson got along with Kermit the puppet really well. He's just a piece of felt.
So when he started talking back, that he got into trouble. I'm on whose hand now? I don't know. They're just they've always been like. As long as I've been alive, like these pop culture phenomenon of, and like kind of weirdo rule breakers, but it's been this partnership that's just lasted, and they've done, you know, they kind of like Abbott and Costello, they've kind of done everything. They've done TV and obviously their live shows and
and like Richard brought, you know, innovative for not just what they represented, but what they were kind of thumbing their nose against, and that's the kind of the hokiness of magic. And
like they did a PBS special in the mid 80s, and one of the bits, they get out on stage and they talk about how, unlike other comedians like David Copperfield, they're not going to rely on cheap video editing to mask their comedy. And then, of course, they do a whole 2-minute bit where it's like the most obvious, like bad video editing type thing imaginable.
They broke a lot of rules and kind of eschewed that, like the standard magician's creed or whatever. Whether they show how the tricks were done, and show how their illusions are done, and that must have just driven people crazy. And maybe there was some sort of like solidarity within. Like, we're both going to do this, and we're both going to be on the outs with people, but we're going to be so good and so clever with our trick that we can do it in front of people, and people still can't figure it out.
So one of the interesting things about Teller, we were talking about him kind of being presented as this kind of mute, almost sort of like sadomasochistic,
or like a Harpo
Harpo part crash test dummy.
Yeah.
In real life, he's actually Penn has said before, you know, Teller is the brains of the operation in a lot of ways in terms of designing the tricks, kind of being the business guy behind the scenes who makes all the deals. You know, he's kind of the he's sort of the brains of the outfit.
I've heard Charlie Watts is actually the leader of the Rolling Stones, so he's keeping the beat and making
pretty much, yeah.
Okay, guys. So what's your second, Richard?
All right. So my second, I was thinking about kids media, cartoons, TV shows, things like that. And there's a lot of partnerships there as well, because I think you want to show people working together, sometimes working in disagreement, sometimes like Ren and Stimpy, people who are animals who are awful. As I had several on here, you know, I had Pinky that really, maybe it's just because my daughter is now getting into Animaniacs. I really had Pinky and the Brain on the brain. But I went with Bert and Ernie anyway.
Oh, for Christ's sakes. I didn't have that one.
Oh, good. Because, you know, best friends, oftentimes, they don't have a lot in common. I mean, look at Michael and I. You know, one of us is brilliant, funny, and handsome. There's Michael.
Good stuff.
Yeah.
He had to write all this down.
I zinged you. Zing Michael. Real good.
He had to write down that terrible and obvious joke.
Real good.
Write it down.
See, it's postmodern. It's such a bad joke.
Actually, I think he copied that out of Wikipedia. That's in Wikipedia.
That's actually on the Wikipedia for Bert and Ernie.
Under joke.
Yeah.
That's a joke.
But there's not famous pairing that's kind of proves that point more than Bert and Ernie. I mean, they're roommates, polar opposites. They're not lovers. Don't even start with that. I can see you making the joke.
Oh.
Don't make that joke. It's creepy.
No, I don't make dumb jokes.
Kids show. Don't say that. So Jim Henson created them, and people have said they actually reflect the friendship between Frank Oz and Jim Henson.
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Because they both liked shoving their hands up each other's wazoos. Well, Bert and Ernie were the only Muppets that were in the pilot of Sesame Street, really. And the fact that they worked so well together kind of convinced everybody that the show should have more Muppets. And that the Muppets shouldn't interact with people. That would be a really kind of smart way to do it. So if you think kind of the fact that Bert and Ernie are such a great pairing, that kind of created the whole template for Sesame Street. That
It's amazing how many different partnerships that we've talked about and probably will talk about, like they kind of focus on like these opposites attracting and like this push and pull, and you need the neurotic Bert to go crazy by, you know, Ernie leaving a mess or whatever
Oscar and Felix.
Yeah, I mean, that's very much kind of an archetype. This is obviously, I can't really tell you who the straight man, don't make that joke. The straight man here is, I mean, I guess it's technically.
No, it's Bert.
Yeah, but then he's
a weirdo that like.
He's also a weirdo.
Pigeon, like he raises pigeons. Like
he's a bottle cap collection. I feel like
here's a list of weirdos who raise pigeons. It's Bert and
Mike Tyson.
I also feel like Ernie could stay or leave because he's got Rubber Ducky.
That's true. Ooh. Yeah, but Bert's got what's the name of his pigeon? Bernice.
They've each got Fowl.
Yeah.
Ernie's got Tweedlebugs.
Yeah. Bert and Ernie, I mean, they really kind of helped millions of kids for generations learn lessons of understanding, kind of acceptance.
Yeah.
And pigeons.
I did feel like my brother and I were Bert and Ernie. We were at odds frequently, and that we.
Yeah, I've been meaning to tell you about your eyebrows. You really need to start plucking a little bit.
I wish I had that much hair at the top of my head. Okay, all right, cool. Bert and Ernie. Michael, what's your third?
One last thing about Bert and Ernie. If you watch Portlandia, the two Carrie and Fred, they each have a C and an F carved into the top of their headboard.
That's incredible.
As a nod
Never
to
noticed
Bert and
that.
Ernie, yeah. My third one, I'm going to go back to childhood too. Peanut butter and jelly
Oh, that's
Oh, there you
beautiful.
go.
is the perfect pairing of something sweet, something salty, a sandwich that I really didn't eat growing up, so I don't know how I have liberty. I had like weird food stuffs and a weird palate. I had like
Kids cereal edition.
That's right.
No milk in the cereal.
I had like I couldn't like mac and cheese, like that weird parent when like two things were together. I never had mac and cheese until I was in my 20s.
What?
I don't know. And same thing with like peanut butter and jelly. There was like I had like this mental block against it. But now I've come to appreciate the greatness of the peanut butter and jelly sandwich, and as a it's just like a nearly perfect food.
I'm by the way, I will back away for a second because I do not like jelly. So I respect it, but I have no.
Have you had it with peanut butter? Because I will say this: peanut butter by itself is kind of garbage.
I like peanut butter.
You would just eat it by itself.
I'd have a peanut butter sandwich. I've had peanut butter with banana sandwiches. That's
It's a very
It's good
Elvis-y
times.
thing to do.
I don't fry them though. I'm
Do
not.
you
I'm not a
recognize
heathen.
the distinction, or do you have prejudice towards jam versus jelly? Does it matter?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think jelly tends to be spread smoother.
Yeah.
And it tends to have a better application.
What's your feeling on the goober grape product?
the pre-mixed one.
I'm against. I don't know. Well, I've never had it. I imagine it.
You're against it on principle.
Yeah, it seems like making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich is like the easiest thing for a kid to learn how to make.
Yeah.
You put peanut butter on one side and jelly on the other. I mean, it's a two-part
It
process.
speaks to a poverty of imagination and culinary prowess.
Yeah, there's a really good series of quick Mr. Show skits. They do
on the goober grape.
well, yeah, because they do like a fake commercial for if you don't have the time to combine your mustard and your mayonnaise.
Yeah.
It's mustardnaise, I think, or and then like the next one is like
Dijonnaise.
yeah. Then the next one is if you don't have time to like add cheese to it. I think like the cheese is already mixed in. And it's just like continues to devolve from there.
The peanut butter and jelly sandwich hasn't been around that long.
Really?
1901. Apparently, that was when it was first like published as like in a magazine.
In a cookbook, like by the way, that's the world's worst cookbook.
I think it was also used as, peanut butter was used as kind of like a meat replacement in terms of just like it was cheap, it was easy, you could make an easy to eat sandwich.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those poverty foods that just became a regular food.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
We're gonna. Donald Trump's gonna kick it over over the border pretty soon.
Like spam, it's kind of a byproduct, and then
So this would have been like what the night you said, like early 1900s, then, right? Is that what you said when it first was published?
1901.
1901. So
20th century.
So basically, it was either that or dog food. That was like a replacement for that, or horse meat or something like that.
Yeah.
Is it crust on or crust off?
Crust on. I don't think that there's any.
You don't have a crust.
I don't have a crust thing.
What type of bread? What's your bread? What's your bread of choice
although
here?
Smucker's does own the they own the patent to crustless peanut butter and jelly sandwiches. You can buy they're like called Crustables.
Yeah.
Uncrustables.
Uncrustables.
Yeah.
Crustables is just all crust.
That's
the
worst sandwich. It's just a ball of crust.
That's what I want
Dunked in water.
Pizza to come out with, an all crust pizza, or 7 different kinds of crust.
a crust baked into a crust, baked into a crust.
I love the crust duckin'.
So what's your bread of choice?
I like a wheat bread that's not not with a bunch of like nuts and oats and things in it. Just a very simple wheat bread with a nice. I don't have that weird. Like I think because I didn't grow up eating it, I don't have that I can't have. It has to be smooth. I didn't develop all those the bad PB&J habits where I can only have it this way because this is the only thing I knew.
You found it as an adult. Yeah.
Chunky, smooth, different kind of jellies. It doesn't matter. crust on, crust off. It's all
Right.
good and delicious.
Mount Rushmore podcast and you. I can't think of a better team. So join us, would you, on our social media sites, the facebook.com Mount Rushmore pod, and then at Twitter or at Instagram Mount Rushmore pod, and join in on the dialogue. If we missed a and partnership that you like, let us know what it was. If you have an opinion about the ones we expressed, jump into the conversation and let us know what you think. And now back to our show. Richard, we are at your third choice.
Okay, and I am going to stay on the food kind of bandwagon or food wagon, if you will.
When were you on it?
We were talking about.
he never got off
You're on his wagon.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of keep on that. Keep on the food train there. And I thought about a few here. I thought about chips and salsa, because there's nothing that will screw up a Mexican meal more than delicious chips and salsa continuing to go into my mouth until I have no room for the actual food.
It is really like a dinner or lunch ruiner.
Right.
Where you're just sitting there like, why did I do this?
But it's so
good. It's like you get past that, like, this is so good, God, I'm so angry with myself.
Right. I thought about that. I thought about Jack and Coke, which Michael and I both, I think, have a love for. Mm-hmm. As evidenced by a couple of the recent episodes where you could hear a tinkling of glasses from our ice and our Jack and Cokes as we devolved into madness. But I decided to go with two hippies from Vermont.
Oh.
Neither of them are Bernie Sanders, but somehow we've let these hippies control our desserts over the past 3 decades or so. I mean, there's no way Ben and Jerry's should still be this popular. It just feels like it should be that thing that, like, in the 80s was like...
It's so niche.
Yeah.
And, like, they just have that really good marketing behind. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, it should have been something like in the 80s. There's, like, one of those, like, hey, this cool, like, ice cream thing that, like, 5 years later crashed and burned because they expanded too fast or whatever. Because
they were around Benetton. Like, I feel like it should have been gone.
Benetton
and Jerry's, yeah.
Benetton and Jerry.
Yeah, so it should be. So it absolutely should be something like that, because they're making ice cream. Mm-hmm. But here it is 37 years later, and I can't go to a grocery store without seeing a pint, or one of the stores, out at the mall that I ignore whenever I go into the movies, but it's still there. Here's the crazy part. Ben from Ben and Jerry has anosmia, which means that he basically has no sense of taste and no sense of smell.
That's wild.
Which probably explains why we got peanut butter and jelly ice cream. Which, how would you feel about that, by the way, Michael?
Probably wouldn't eat it.
Yeah. Or Ms. Jelena's sweet potato pie ice cream. That's the type of thing that you create when you can't actually taste or smell anything.
Those sounds like a lot of mistake ice creams where like
oops, all sweet potato pie.
Yeah.
But they hit more than they miss. Yeah, my personal favorite is the black and tan. That I don't even know if it exists anymore. I certainly haven't seen it in a while. It was a stout and a pale ale type of ice cream. It's like what they were going after. So it's like a stout vanilla with like a swirled chocolate.
Next time we're recording, bring that over.
And apparently people didn't like it because it's named after an alcoholic drink. And how dare you sell an ice cream that? Get out of here, guys.
That's kind of like, that would be like a really fun kind of ideal job, is just the guy that names Ben and Jerry's ice cream. They just have to come up with something ridiculous. I used to
Chubby Hubby. I did that one. That's me. That was all me.
I used to, like, a long time ago, I really wanted to be the guy that wrote the menu or wrote all the jokes at, like, not Fuddruckers. What's
Farrell's?
No. What's the
TGI Friday?
Yeah. What was I'm fucking blanking on it right now.
Yeah, Bennigan's or something.
There's always like just those
the onion version of it. TJ McPickle shitters.
Like, I want to be the guy that wrote like the really bad jokes on like the coasters.
Yeah,
and I figured like that's
a great.
That's the same guy.
Also
also coming up with
also the Rebuses and the bottle caps of was it Mickey's that had a Lucky Lager would have those?
Oh yeah. Weren't the Ben and Jerry kind of spoofed in City Slickers, or their characters who were similar?
No,
to that?
it was yeah. These two like nerdy, tremendous fat guys.
Yeah. It's basically.
Oh, where he puts. That's right. He's like baked beans, and he's like scoop of chocolate, scoop of vanilla, and then like they're high fiving, and he's like, "How do you know? How do you know?" He's like, "I just know."
Yeah. Right. And they've stayed true to their roots. They're still hippies at heart. They donate to a lot of causes. Still, they give out free ice cream. Free ice cream days. Mm-hmm. I'm on board with anything with that. And really, they're the go-to ice cream for college students putting on their freshman 15. or stock romantic characters in a comedy who've just broken up with their boyfriend and or girlfriend. You just can't go wrong with it.
I think it's also the first ice cream that is kind of very liberal because it seems like they support. Well, I think of them, the Cherry Garcia. It's got a hip
world peace. Imagine world peace. Yeah. I mean, because when you think of like Dryers, I think we're actually Klan members.
Yeah, that's totally.
I don't know that. Don't sue us, guys. I don't need big ice cream coming after us. But
the only speaking of big ice cream, that's my only qualm with them is that they only put out their ice cream in those like small, tiny buckets of ice cream. Like, put out a gallon, you guys. Let's really get to it.
Yeah, this is America.
That's right.
We need more than a pint at a time, you guys.
Scumbags.
We should also let you know we're happy to report that if you go to MountRushmorePodcast.com, there is a printable coupon for a free pint of Ben and Jerry's.
No, we couldn't get the.
Where at participating grocery stores? Are you saying nobody's participating?
No, we got that. We did get Dippin' Dots though.
Oh,
so the ice cream of the future.
The ice cream that burns your tongue immediately.
Go get as many as you can. We're authorizing you to just go steal Dippin' Dots. Don't eat them though because they're miserable. They're awful.
Okay, Michael, it's time for your last choice.
My last one is I wanted to have kind of a failed partnership, although successful, but ultimately kind of failed. Simon and Garfunkel, who it was such a one-sided partnership.
Yeah.
In reality.
Yeah.
Paul Simon wrote all of their songs except for like 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm. Right.
He was the main driving force. And it's funny, later on you look at like their solo work and all Garfunkel had was that haircut.
Yeah.
As like his main like.
He brought the high melodies. He brought the high perm.
Simon and Garfunkel, obviously a folk music heroes, and they're the #1 band in the world at some point. And
the greatest duo of all time musically.
Yeah. And
sorry, Indigo Girls.
Yeah, sorry, she and him.
Take that, Milli Vanilli.
Matt and Kim. You guys are done. They were just the #1 band in the world, #1 group in the world, and they just, because they didn't like each other, they broke up. And
that, and also because like I think Simon at some point realized dead weight over here.
Yeah, like these were two guys that like, but they always kept getting back together. They didn't hate each other enough that they didn't see the opportunity of like.
But was it for
the
commercial
concert
benefit? Didn't it was like Central Park?
Well, the concert in Central Park,
one of the reunion sort of ones.
The big reunion one, 500,000 people attended, which is a crazy number.
It's almost like a Bernie Sanders rally.
Yeah. What was interesting was it went to refurbish and restore the park, which had become overrun with Warriors and Baseball Furies and the Lizzies.
And also most of the money probably went to restoring the park after 500,000 people trampled over it.
Right. That gang of punks from Police Academy 2 with Bobcat Goldthwait.
I always imagine Art Garfunkel just called up Paul Simon and asked him to come over and help him move a couch. And he shows up and there's a big crowd there. And he goes, "Hey, would you do a concert with me real quick?" Oh.
There's a great Saturday Night Live skit from, I want to say it was like the early 90s, late 80s, like one of the Phil Hartman, like Jan Hooks kind of era. And Paul Simon was guest hosting. And like he's in line with Victoria Jan Hooks, I think, to see a movie, and people keep coming up to him, and like it gets progressively more and more like it starts off like, "Hey, we had dinner at someone's house." Like, "Oh yeah, I remember you." And it keeps going on to like, "Hey, I don't know, I saw you one time in concert in like '78. I don't know if you remember, but like I shout out for you shout out for the boxer, and I'd already played it." Like, yeah, because I was in the bathroom, I didn't hear it. And it's like this amazing thing. And at the very end, Art Garfunkel comes up, actual Art Garfunkel. Yeah. "Hey, Paul, how's it going?" Of course, the punchline is Paul's like, "Do I know you?" So I have nothing to add to that, other than at least they were able to, I think, on some level, recognize at least later on the inequality of the arrangement.
Paul Simon went on to write some pretty great albums. Graceland was incredible.
Yeah. Garfunkel had a little bit of a film career, though. I think he was in like a
Catch-22 and
I definitely think that the partnership was them stepping. I remember Paul Simon saying, "I was sick of being the Everly Brothers with Art, and I wanted to be Elvis by myself." And stepping out of that partnership and into
it's not at all egotistical right there, by the way.
Oh, unfortunately, he stepped into partnership with
Carly Simon.
He stepped into partnership.
No, wait.
Do you remember how many
That's
videos?
James Taylor,
Do you
sorry.
remember how many videos he was in with Chevy Chase? And
Well, one's enough. One is enough. Let's be honest here.
I just remember an era where Chevy Chase wanted to be in everybody's music video, and I just wanted to punch him. Okay, I think we're at the fourth for Richard now.
Also, by the way, with the Chevy Chase, you didn't have to say in everybody's music video.
Yeah.
You could just said, I remember Chevy Chase and how much I wanted to punch him.
How much I wanted, yeah.
Probably could. Guys, it's crazy how much our picks are like interlapping, Michael. This is like weird because I had Simon and Garfunkel for the longest time on here, and at the last minute, I was really ready to go with him because I thought Lennon and McCartney, such an easy choice. There's Simon and Garfunkel, the greatest duo in music history. You know what? They weren't really a partnership.
No.
They were Simon
I'm glad you.
and Garfunkel kind of just riding coattails and singing the high parts.
It's like Orville making a plane, Wilbur drunk in the corner. The Wright brothers were not a team.
Right, but they were brothers, so therefore
Yeah.
they were stuck together. And that's not the case with Lennon and McCartney. I mean, sure, some songwriting credits, mainly they only were Lennon and McCartney songs by the end, certainly by like the White Album. And even a lot of the songs that they wrote, quote unquote, together before that were ones where one person did a majority of the lifting. Anything like Penny Lane, Strawberry Fields. Those are all like a Lennon song or a McCartney song, and maybe the other one contributed a little bit. But even you take those songs away. I mean, think about a song like Day in the Life, which was Lennon had this scrap of a song, couldn't figure out how to finish it. McCartney comes in, has this scrap of a song, kind of winds up becoming the middle bridge part of it. They find a way to kind of merge it together, and it becomes like the most famous, like kind of epic song in rock history. Or even something like We Can Work It Out, where you've got this real kind of cynical, like unsure if this is going to work out sort of middle section from Lennon, kind of cutting through and counterbalancing. McCartney is a very optimistic verse section. And even, I think even more than that, even if they weren't co-writing the songs, like as they would say, literally sitting down nose to nose at the piano and working through the songs, I think they just influenced and informed each other so much. Like a song like Oh Darlin', which is a McCartney song, but it's definitely a McCartney song of him trying to write a John Lennon kind of 50s inspired rocker type of song. And it works.
Yeah, definitely kind of fire and ice that brought out the best in each other. And I think a partnership that was also an internal rivalry.
Yes.
Each of them wanted to be the person who had the A side. Each of them wanted to write a song that was as good as a Chuck Berry or as good as a Bob Dylan or as good as a Brian Wilson.
Right.
And to top the other one's skill at accomplishing that.
Yeah, I mean, and they, I've read a lot about the Beatles, and in the studio.
Oh, they were in the Beatles.
Oh, sorry, did I not mention that, guys?
Oh, sorry, hasn't brought
I was thinking the other. I was thinking the other Lennon and McCartney. Sorry,
I assumed for all the albums that they put out together and all the times they toured together as Lennon and McCartney, which
Oh, you're thinking of Vladimir Lenin and Joe McCarthy.
Joe McCarthy.
Easy mistake to make, Michael.
I have on this
Talk
list
about-
a bunch of known ventriloquist dummies.
I mean, they were just different types of people, but they brought something to the other person. I mean, Paul would show up. He was very focused in the studio, knew what he wanted to get. Lennon would show up and, like, for Benefit of Mr. Kite, would sort of just tell George Martin, like, I want it to sound like a circus. Make it happen. And they kind of just... They fed off each other, like you said. There's a rivalry, a friendly rivalry there for a long time. Kind of just pushed each other. So...
Yeah,
it's Lennon and McCartney. I don't feel like I should have to defend this one much further than that.
Starr and Harrison are crying somewhere, saying like, "We did one too."
I brought the sitar. Nobody else had a sitar.
Peace and love.
Peace and love for Ringo. Okay, so these gentlemen have registered their.
Oh, I forgot Hall & Oates.
Too late. The vault has been closed. The end vault has been closed. Hall & Oates will just have to linger outside. Come on, is that a partnership?
Well, Oates is used to lingering around anyway, so it's not a big deal for him.
I do like that Garfunkel and Oates became a comedy.
A comedy group.
Yeah. They're just these two has-beens on each side.
Michael, before we wrap up, I am just gobsmacked.
Wow.
That you did not have Jeeves and Wooster on there.
I thought it was too niche.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I know you love them so much.
I do love them. They're incredible. But
All right,
you got to make it on Mount Rushmore. Can't be niche.
So while I mentally tally up who indeed is the winner, and there is a winner this time, I'm going to go down the Jeeves and Wooster route to a comedy team that is really influential for me. This is my and choice. This is the judge's choice. This is Bob and Ray.
Ooh, love it.
I know really a lot of people might know who Bob and Ray are. If you know Chris Elliott, then Bob Elliott was Chris Elliott's dad. But they were a very influential comedy team whose career spanned 5 decades. And I guess when David Letterman wasn't imitating a Steve Allen or Ernie Kovacs, I think he was definitely imitating their deadpan style, in that Letterman came from kind of a world of broadcasting in which your first job wasn't to be funny. So did Bob and Ray, came out of the radio world where they were just going to deliver straight news and then develop this kind of subtle sarcasm and irony that really, I think, influenced a lot of the single camera deadpan comedy that you see on TV. In something like The British Office, The American Office, or Parks and Rec, where it's really not over the top Borscht Belt comedy like Milton Berle, but just very subtle winks and nods.
They weren't about punchlines, and a lot of they wouldn't do sketches where it's like premise, setup, big punchline, laughs, go on to the next thing. A lot of it were just sort of almost like they were almost like the godfathers or grandfathers of like improvisational comedy. Yeah. Where they would just take these two roles. And a lot of times they would do it in the form of like an interview or a man on the street sort of thing. Yeah. And there was never like a set. One of them was a straight man. One of them was the wacky funny guy.
That's right. I think they also tried to kind of occupy the almost where a guy like Milton Berle or Bob Hope wanted to be the sharp, quick-witted MC who was the center of everything. Bob and Ray liked to pretend to be these kind of weirdo characters who were the average people. Or
a lot of times they would try to. And I could do like 30 minutes on Bob and Ray because they kind of had this like renaissance, I think, like in the 80s. Yeah, I remember that
back on
like
Broadway in the 70s.
Yeah, and then like they'd come on Letterman all the time. All the time, obvious connections with with Chris Elliott, but also like they would do a lot of these commercial parodies in their like TV shows where they kind of end with this like, well, friends, we have by mistake we wound up with an extra 2 million stamps that are 2 cents when we all know that it's a 5 cent stamp, and they do a whole bit about that.
Ad for metal ingots or flypaper or something that was just really deadpan.
Or Mushies, the cereal that gets soggy even without adding milk.
Fun stuff. So maybe we'll have the opportunity to leave a link.
Yeah, please. By the way, guys, just thank you for listening. Thank you wherever you're listening. Please go to our website, mtrushmorepodcast.com. We have the show notes on there. We put a lot of links with information, YouTube clips, stuff like that about the things we're talking about. So there's a lot of good content on there. So please make sure you check that out after you get a chance to listen to the show. I think there's a lot of cool stuff on there you'll enjoy.
Yeah, I read through them and it makes me hate Richard's picks just a little bit less.
All right, so I have had time to mentally calculate using an algorithm of my invention who the winner is, and this was a real close one, but I didn't want there to be a tie because those are boring.
Did I tell you how much I love that Bob and Ray pick, by the way?
Richard is the winner of this episode of the Mount Rushmore podcast, and probably because I think he really stuck with a theme, and that was these partnerships in which there was a lot of internal conflict within the people, and that conflict is what made them great. I realize that peanut butter and jelly has its own kind of...
God, I should have gone without crusts.
Yeah. But, amazingly, there's a lot of kind of cooperation in some of those teams. So I really liked Richard's picks, and Richard is the winner.
Good job, Richard.
Thank you.
Richard gets a big kiss from me. Open mouth. Here it comes. All right,
that was delicious.
That's all the time because Richard and I...
Did you have a peanut butter and jelly sandwich before? I'd like to know.
Thanks for listening. This has been Jeff.
This is Richard.
And Michael.
We'll talk to you next time.